Hi everybody, Chris van die Kerk here at Blue Rhino Safaris. I trust you had a good Easter weekend. You would have noticed nothing from me over Easter. We were chilling a little bit and enjoying our Easter weekend, taking a bit of a break from the break. I heard someone in a video said he's so tired of resting that he needs a rest. That's more or less what we did on the weekend. So I trust you guys are doing well. I trust you're staying safe. Just a bit of a comment from my side. I think this is the new norm for us. We're going to have to learn to live with viruses and infectious diseases. So get into the habit of washing hands, keeping clean, keeping distances, and going forward I think we're going to see a lot more of this. I'm going to give you the results of the poll that we did and also the trips that you suggested. Thank you to everybody that suggested something. Very interesting things that came out there. But I was setting this up to just to show you what I'm planning, and I was looking at the Google Earth, these lines here on the sides. I don't know if you've ever noticed that if you go onto Google Earth you can see these lines. Those are called rift lines. It's rifting in the sea. Rifting is when the Earth comes out and it opens up. So the South American continent and Africa is separating from each other at roughly 5 to 6 centimeters per year. That's this much every year that these continents are drifting apart. And what it is this rift line that sits right here, where the Earth basically comes out and folds open. And the reason we know this was in the Second World War, the submarines that went around had sonar. And with sonar, they could basically map the seabed. And what they noticed was alongside of this rift, they didn't know it was a rift at the time. But along this line, there's what happens on the right-hand side happens on the left-hand side, and you almost have a mirror image on both sides. And they realized then that the Earth is actually busy pushing out from the inside. So this is the rift line, and it's just I saw it now and I thought, let me show you. I've often spoke about it on my trips, but there is the rift line. That's where the Earth is busy opening up, and the African and South American continent are moving apart at about 5 to 6 centimeters a year. But the first thing I wanted to do was to show you the results from the trip inquiry that I did. I asked you guys to give me your ideas on what we can do in South Africa so that we don't have to cross borders, and what would you like to do and what suggestions you have. So here we are with them. Alright, so here's the results. I just basically listed the I think it's 19 main trips that people suggested, and I've got a number next to them if there were people that gave me, or more people than one that just gave me that route. So let's just go over the results, starting from the top. I had a suggestion of maybe a bush Kruger, something off the beaten track a little bit, maybe not the mainstream but slightly off the mainstream, which is a good idea. I wouldn't mind doing it. I like the Kruger because of the restaurants and food availability, so that's something that I could do. Coming this way, the Malopo River area, which is something that I might do, including with Kagalagadi when I do the Kagalagadi area. And then another single one is 4x4 routes coming down to the Free State area and around to Natal. Something that I've looked at before. I haven't actually done it yet, but there is a nice few things to do in that area. Then the Transkei area, or the Wild Coast, which is something that I have done before and didn't have many takers, but always something I can look at. The Baviaans area, I had a request for the Baviaans area. Very nice mountain passes in that region. And then the Karoo / travel from Joburg to the Cape through the Karoo, do a few mountain passes, visit a few of the parks. There were 2 of those. And then the Cederberg area, I had 2 requests for that as well, which is something that I can always combine with the West Coast route, which I had 2 inquiries for. West Coast Richtersveld, I already do the Richtersveld and the West Coast, so have a look at that. If you see the West Coast Richtersveld, that is basically that tour. I could maybe just extend it a little bit and include a little bit of the Cederberg Wuppertal area. Very nice mountainous area that. And then coming up to the right hand side, the one that that I had to for as well before I carry on is around Lesotho. One suggestion was clockwise, the other one was anti-clockwise, but both going around Lesotho. And what that would entail is basically on the southern end there's lovely mountain passes, very much gravel roads, so very nice, but passes like trip, like I do with my Passes and Parks tour already. And then through the Free State, which is the historical Basotho War area where the Boers and the Basothos had their arguments, where the Cape and everybody got together. So through that area and then into the Free State, Golden Gate area, very nice, and then the Drakensberg on the Natal side. So I had two suggestions for that route, which is also something that I'm thinking of. It is a nice route, and there's a way that I can do that which will make a bit of sense. But as I said, on the KZN area, I had 4 suggestions of different things, but more or less ending up on the coastal zone, St. Lucia area, Mabibi, that area, and then also some of the parks in Natal. So let's look at that area in a little bit more detail, and I can show you what there is. So what's going to happen is I'm going to send you a little bit of information and a few questions of this region. Would you want to do maybe Sodwana Bay? Do you want to include scuba diving, or maybe take someone to take us out for a snorkel dive at 1 Mile? 1 Mile is in Sodwana. It's a snorkel place where you can basically go and snorkel in the sea for a bit. You don't need a scuba permit or license to do it. You can just do the snorkeling part of it. But yeah, if you look at the whole Natal area, then in the northern section, Northern Natal, that's the Bushveld section of Natal. It's a very nice bushveldy Natal-like section. Mkuzi Game Reserve, just south of the Swaziland area. Then there's what's known as the Pongola Poort Dam, or the Josini Dam is what I know it as, with its wall right there, where you can cross over to Sodwana Bay and Cozy Bay area. So there's I think Tembe or Elephant Reserve up here, Ndumo, Ndumo Game Reserve, the Lebombo Mountains, very old Bushman painting site. Nice interesting information on or history on the Lebombo Mountains. Geologically as well, it's the youngest that we have in Southern Africa are these Lebombo areas. And then from this Elephant Reserve all the way over to Cozy Bay with the 3 lakes. Maybe visit the 3 lakes at Cozy Bay, down to the mouth, which is always nice to visit and see. It's not very often that you would see that. From Cozy Bay down to Lake Sibaya, maybe Mabibi is a nice place to go to for a day. So we do a little bit of coastal driving, maybe a bit of sand driving in here, because a few people have asked about sand as well, just to get more experience on sand. And then further south you get down to Lake St. Lucia, maybe visit Lake St. Lucia or go past St. Lucia, and all the way down Richards Bay, obviously Durban. Then down in the southern area, close to Port Edward, there's a very nice coffee farm there. If you haven't visited the coffee farm, we can do the coffee farm down in the south, and maybe then just go not up to Mthatha, but a little bit before that, turn up towards Kwacha's Neck, and then do the Drakensberg on the way up. Do Giant's Castle, Royal Natal National Park, maybe Cobham, do Sani Pass up and down, and those type of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you another competition with a few questions on it, where you can tick a few things that you would prefer to do, and we're closing in on this route that we want to do. If it doesn't happen this year, then it will happen early next year. It will happen in the next 12 months. It will be this route, and I'm thinking of maybe just doing 1 or 2 other things as well. Maybe a little bit of a 4x4 training thing in the Drakensberg where we go down for 4 or 5 days and do a bit of 4x4 training and do Sani Pass and do a few things that make sense for keeping us busy, educating us, getting us better equipped for what we are doing with our vehicles. So yeah, this is where we are going to go with the do-it-yourself trip. And as I said, there's quite a few things that we can do around the edge of Natal. Let's go to the results of the poll that I did. So the first thing that we had was the length of the tour, and you can see a few people said 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. The purple is the biggest chunk, and that was for 8 days. So expect a tour that's going to last about 8 days. How many people on the tour? Obviously, the more people there are, the cheaper I can make it, because I also need to cover my costs. So fortunately, we have quite a few people saying 8 to 10 people, the green one, and 6 to 8 people is the orange one. So I'm going to go with the 8 to 10. 10 to 12 wasn't as popular, but I can tell you 12 people is a nice group. So let's work on about 10 people. So we have 8 days, 10 people. Should I do catering? And this just confirms my understanding of my guests. They do their own catering. They're quite comfortable with that. So the majority, 55% said no catering. Some said yes catering. Some said yes restaurants. So we'll include a restaurant or two in that trip. If Beaver Creek, lovely little restaurant, lovely coffee. So things like that we can include. Do you want to do 4x4 activities? Most of you said yes, 66% yes, 4x4 activities. Off-road trailer or not? A majority said no towing. Some of you said yes, I'll bring an off-road trailer. So I will design something that does allow for off-road trailers, but you don't have to have one, obviously. What would you pay for a tour? And that was almost predictable, less than 500 Rand per person per night. If you calculate the costs, 500 Rand is not a lot. Obviously, this message is as cheap as possible, and I can understand that. But there were quite a few that said 500 to 700, quite a few that says 700 to 900. So around about 700 is where I'll keep it, and I'll include both of those groups then. So 50% will be comfortable that it will be around 700. So I'm going to see if I can get it to around 700 Rand, depending on the activities and what we do. Maximum travel distance in hours every day. Most of you said 4 to 5 hours. Some said 3 to 4. 3 to 4 is a nice short day, but you can't get very far in 3 to 4 hours if you travel in Tanzania, for example. So you have to stretch your days. But in Natal, I guess the 4 to 5 is probably going to work better. I would normally work on 3 2-hour shifts, so 2, 4, 6, which would put me in the full 5 to 6 hour range. But for this trip, we'll bring it back and we'll make it, let's go with 4 to 5 hours per day. How many nights would you want to spend in a spot? Most people said 2 nights in one spot and then we can move off. So let's see if we can work something with 2 nights in a spot rather than moving every day. Many people were happy with moving every day. 31% said fine, let's move every day. So it will be between 2 nights and a single night in each campsite. And that's what you can expect. Is I'm going to design something that gives you all these results, that satisfies all these results. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to share with you how I build the trip and how I think about the trip when I design it. So I'll do a video on that as well, how I do the budget for the trip, how I think about the structure of the trip, how many rest days there will be, how many travel days, who comes from where, those type of things. I'll work all of that into the way I design a trip. So expect an email from me shortly that shows you or gives you the new questionnaire, and that new questionnaire will be specific about KZN and Zululand and what you would like to do in there. And then we'll take it from there and we'll build a trip from that. Otherwise, stay safe, and I'll chat to you soon. Cheers.